Hi guys, today I'm going to do an interview prep right here live on screen and you are coming with me. And we're going to simulate this interview preparation using W3 Schools and ChatGPT. Now, for those who don't know, W3 Schools is a free platform. You don't even have to sign in, where you can learn different skills. Just look at the menu there. You have Excel, you have SQL, you have MySQL, you have Python, Rust. Like, there's so many things to learn. So today we'll be focusing on the group by statements, and that is also what we'll be basing our interview prep on. Now, the way W3 School works is it explains in very simple terms different concepts under a tool, and it helps you learn. It also has an interactive editor where you can edit your code. And from what you can see here, right here on screen, you can see the demo database, you can see the table, and not only that, it has exercises at the end of each topic. Now, if you notice, this one has a demo database and a visible table. This gives us a reference point for when we are writing our code, and this is the exact way that data analysts work. If you compare it to the other websites that I reviewed the last time, you can see that this one is way much better. So let's try to run a query ourselves. And you see here, it says select country, the count of customer ID as number of customers. So when we click run SQL, this is what the result gives us. And under this section, you can also edit the query. As you are learning, you want to get really hands-on to ensure that what you're learning is really, really sticking. So you should be able to, under this try it yourself section, you should be able to play around with the query, rewrite the code, to make sure that it makes sense, then run the query so that you see what the result looks like. So in this case, I'm going to try to make some edits to the query. So you can see Group By has different applications, and I like how it has been showing us the different ways that Group By can be used, including now we are seeing when Group By is used with a join. I'll consider Group By to be an intermediate topic, beginner to intermediate actually. Now as you can see here, I'm trying to edit the query, after which I'll run it to see the result it will give to me. So this is what it looks like. I actually renamed the column. So let's run quickly to the exercises. So let's answer a few questions, guys. List the number of customers in each country. So in this one, it has kind of fill in the gap questions where you would fill in the appropriate query and then you submit answer for it to grade you. This is just a way of the platform testing your knowledge on the concepts that you just learned. Next question. List the number of customers in each country ordered by the country with the most customers first. So since this is a group by, one of the things you should know about group by is that it's always accompanied by an aggregate function. So we're talking sum, count, average, mean, max. Anywhere there's an aggregate, you most likely use group by. As we continue with this tutorial, I'm going to really explain how to identify a question that requires the use of group by. So a very simple way of knowing where to use group by is when you hear each or per. For example, in this question, list the number of customers in each country. In each, once you see that each, you are grouping by country. If you run this query, it's just going to show you a list of countries and the number of customers from that country. This is one of the ways you can identify a group by question. How can you sort the results of a group by statement? You use the order by. Now let's go to ChatGPT. I'm going to ChatGPT now because, like I always say, use AI after you have learned the fundamentals. I don't like using AI to teach me from scratch. So in this case, we just did a speed run or a speed test or a speed learning of what group by is. So now I'm going to ChatGPT to tell it to simulate interview questions for me based on group by. Now, it is important that I was specific that I just learned group by in SQL. Otherwise, if I tell it to just generate interview questions for me, for instance, if I just say interview questions, since I already have some kind of history with ChatGPT, it's just going to generate all kinds of interview questions from SQL to Python to Excel. So in this case, I have to be very specific and tell it, give me sample interview questions on the topic group by. If I said give me interview questions in SQL, it's probably going to generate questions that cover window functions and all the other intermediate to advanced stuff. So it's important to be specific if you want to use AI to practice for an interview. So let's look at this. The hiring manager asks, if you notice, it's popped up a table and it says management wants to know which product categories generate the most revenue. Your task is to write the SQL query, explain what your query is doing, and then if electronics generated 1.2 million while clothing generated $300,000, what business recommendation would you make? These are the questions that it has generated for me to answer. And then 4, what follow-up questions would you ask before recommending the company invest more in electronics? I like these questions, so we are going to tackle it. Oh, it actually has 2 questions for us, so let's get right to it. So for each question, don't stop after writing the SQL. Explain why you grouped by that column. Very important. Why you chose the aggregation. Another important thing. What the results mean for the business and what you investigate next. This is perfect because this is exactly how you walk through an SQL interview question. Especially if you are using an interview screen, you would actually be talking through your query. So you won't be silent writing the query. You'll be talking through it, because mostly in this age of AI, what they are testing is your thinking, your thought process, and that's what we're going to show right now in handling these tasks. So I'm going back to read the question, and that's the right way to do it. Don't rush, don't immediately start punching your keyboard and throwing up the select star. You want to look at the table. As a data analyst, one of the first things I learned was that you should know your data very well. And I used to think it was such a ridiculous idea. Like, data sets can be so large, how can I know it? But now I understand that at least you have to have an idea of what the columns are and the number of rows and stuff like that. This would inform properly the kind of query you write and the kind of insight you can derive. This is me now writing the query. So I'm saying select sum of sales amount as total sales. Remember that as is used to give an alias, otherwise it's going to generate a random or a blank column name when it runs. If we're using an executor, you will understand what I mean. So by giving it an alias, we are saying it should name that column total sales. And if you notice the way I am writing this query, I want it to be neat. Some people sometimes write their query in a straight line. Please don't do that. For every SQL clause or function, please start each of them on another line so that it will be clean. Alright, so here I'm saying select sum of sales amount as total sales from others, group by product category, and order by sum of sales amount. Descending. Now, why am I writing this? Is because this is exactly what the question wants us to do. The question wants us to first write the SQL query. Now it says explain what your query is doing. If this were a real life scenario, I would literally be talking through them, explaining just like I just did, explaining what each thing I'm writing does. You see how I explained what the as does? This is exactly how you'll be talking through your SQL interview. Now, because I'm not talking, in this case I'm using AI, so I have to write it out. So I'm saying this query is grouping the sales amount by the product category to see how each category is performing in terms of sales. Now, let me quickly explain this query for those who might not understand. Management wants to know which product categories generate the most revenue. Just right off the bat, you know that the resultant table will be just product categories and the total revenue each product category. When you break down the question like this in your head, you will now realize that we are grouping by the product category. So they actually want to see the total number of sales, but they want to see it per category. So they do not just want to see total number of sales as in $1 million. They want to see how that $1 million actually spreads out across each category. This is how I know that I'm supposed to group by product category. And then we're sorting in descending order so that they can quickly see the top performing category. You can imagine if it's a very huge store and we had up to, let's say, 20 product categories. Let me tell you something. If you're analyzing at the executive level, nobody has time to be scrolling through to see how each of those 20 performed. Instead, what you want to do is, in most cases, highlight the top performing ones or highlight the least performing ones, depending on the story you are trying to tell with your data. So by sorting in descending order, is going to show us the highest performing ones first, so that management can quickly look at it and they can quickly scroll down to see the lower performing one. Or I just order by ascending and it will see the lower performing ones first. Okay, now in answering question 3, this is my recommendation. Now I'm saying we should ensure adequate stock of electronics. We can try bundling some electronics to relevant clothing, e.g. shirts and iron. We could also do A/B testing for sales recorded with clothing recommendations in checkout versus no clothing recommendations. Now, this is the recommendation that I'm giving to them. And one thing I want you to know, that recommendations are often generated based on the insights derived. Don't pull out recommendation out of thin air. Please always justify your recommendation using the insights generated. Now, notice that for this one, because I'm not executing, I don't have the data set with me. This is just me conversing with ChatGPT. I am unable to cite or give the corresponding numbers. But when they see, if you remember in the initial question, electronics was generating $1 million, while clothing was generating about $300. You can see that electronics is generating far, and I mean way above our clothing stock. This is why I'm giving them that recommendation, that, you know, instead of just maybe stop selling clothing, we could bundle them, you know. So I have submitted it, and let's see what ChatGPT has to say. So it showed me that I made a mistake, and that's I grouped by product category. That's despite grouping by product category, I forgot to add it, and I could have sworn that I added it in the select statement. But again, do you see why attention to detail is important? Of course, if this were a live interview, I would have cross-checked. But I guess because I'm doing this recording, that's why I'm rushing. I'm working from a co-working space anyway. So look at what ChatGPT is saying. It's rating each of my query and everything. It loves my business recommendation, and there's a hack to giving recommendation. Like I said, you should give recommendation based on the insight, and of course your business knowledge helps you give better recommendation. Like if you have existing experience, you know how to ask follow-up questions, and you know how to give better business recommendation. All right, so let me look at the overall score ChatGPT is giving me. Not bad. So this is interview tip. State the finding. Yes, like I said, you must base your recommendations and insights on the numbers. Give your recommendation, mention validation. All right, okay, I hope you've learned something from this. I'll see you in my next video.